So this evening, the first name on the list is Valerie Falcioni.
Hi, okay. Didn't know what microphone was. Hi, everybody. I wanted to talk today about the water treatment, wastewater treatment plant that is currently being considered, getting it updated, that sort of thing. Now I hear this project's supposed to cost about $40 million, and now reading Councilwoman Brunel's spot here in the newspaper, she's saying that the same thing can be done with $10 million denitrification system, and based on the idea that some of the data for projected growth is faulty, is being used. Now, my question is, number one, what other systems besides this MBR system has been considered for the upgrade, and what do you think of this denitrification? What are your feelings about this? It seems to me, I don't see us having $40 million worth of growth, to justify that kind of upgrade. I don't know much about this stuff, so that's why I'm asking. I'm putting forth the question.
The $10 million for the denitrification system is what I got from the consultant we hired, GHD. Had done the research to find out what was the cheapest way for us to become compliant with the state to get to E&R, and that's what they had come up with. What other processes did they look into today? I think they briefly touched upon biomag, but I asked that same question, and it doesn't look like they researched too far as to what other systems. I think they like the MBR, the membrane bioreactor, because of the efficiency that it could be expanded on the existing footprint up to 10 MGD. The 40 million you're talking about only gets us back to where we're at now, 2 MGD. I think there's some discrepancy now that for us to go with the denitrification system, I believe there were additional costs that Mr. Flanagan said would also be attributed. I know that the headworks would have to be upgraded to, for $3 million. The other numbers I'll have to go back and look at. As I said, I'm not an expert in this, but just looking at the information that I got and spoke with other people and presented the information to them, does this sound right to you? This sounds like a lot of money. Boy, I'd love to put this money in another area, but seeing that we should have our priorities in place in where we would invest this. And I pretty much got across the board the confirmation that this is not, MGD is not the only, MBR is not the only process out there that we could be considering. Pilot studies could have been done. We're past that point. We're now under a consent order. By 2017, we have to be compliant, or huge fines will be levied against us. I think the only choices we have at this point is either MBR or denitrification. Denitrification isn't too complicated, I think, that we couldn't implement it. If we had it to do over again, I would have liked to have had more information as to what really was going on. I don't think we were ever presented with the consultants, with the information that MDE only requires us to go to E&R, and that we can get there by this amount of money. It was either, I think the first amount of money was like 60 million, and then we found out we could split the project into phases. So, just a little concerned, maybe it was my inexperience with the wastewater treatment plan process, but I don't think so. I think after checking with Jim Mullen and Mike Dunn, they also agreed that they were not presented the information in that manner. So, would you like to add?
Would you explain to me how the denitrification system works?
Well, I think what she's talking about is really expansion of the current system and some minor modifications. But I have to tell you, Valerie, that the council members sat through 2 hours of the presentation by the Public Works Department this morning. And I wish that you would have been here because I think you could have gotten there.
It's recorded.
Good, there you have it. It's very important because the Public Works Department spent 2 hours going through the history and the development of this project and really the pros and the cons of going the way that they're going versus another way. And first off, the $40 million includes some upgrades that need to be done to reach our ultimate capacity of 2 million. That the current plant has some weaknesses and some, I'll call it weak links, that need to be improved upon in order to get to the 2 million capacity that we are permitting for. The second thing is that this $40 million lays the groundwork for future expansion of future capacity. If we go in another direction, the proposed direction that Diana Brumel has a preference for, we will have to start over again when we increase capacity and with a new system, and therefore it will cost a lot more money. There's no doubt about it. We can save a little bit now and spend a lot later, or we can spend a lot now and be ready for the future to grow to our ultimate capacity. There's been studies to determine that the area that is served by Seneca Point will need at final build out about 10 million gallons of capacity way down the pike. The question is, do we want to start that groundwork for laying that growth now or later? So there are costs and there's benefits. One of the other benefits for switching the type of treatment system now is the fact that they believe, the Public Works Department believes, that they can continue to expand using this technology on the current site without going to a different location. With other technologies, it's highly probable that it will not fit on the current site, and we would have to re-site a wastewater treatment facility somewhere else. And I guess Scott Klein made it perfectly clear that the next worst option to siting a landfill is a wastewater treatment plant. Nobody wants a wastewater treatment plant in their backyard. So, and it would be a significant cost to re-site a wastewater treatment plant. The Public Works Department has tried to convince the council that they've been working on this for a long time. They've done a lot of engineering and design. They chose this type of treatment a long time ago. Actually, they even said that back in August of 11, 4 out of 5 commissioners voted in favor of this type of treatment system. The 5th commissioner wasn't even here. She was not on. She was absent. I don't know what reason she was absent, but she probably would have voted too. But this is something that the county commissioners have been working on with the Public Works Department for many years. And I know it's a lot of money. I don't like it. I wish that it was a lot cheaper. I've been trying to raise the sky's falling attitude, even while I was a commissioner, on how we're going to pay for this. But unless something definitive comes up, I think that the strengths of going with this technology outweigh the fact of going in a different direction at this point in time. And on top of that, we've invested I think $3 million in design and engineering, of which a lot of that money would go down the drain if we decided to go in a different direction.
And that $3 million is for the system you're considering.
Yes. Yes. You all have something to say about it, but I really encourage you to listen to the presentation. It was a long presentation. There was a lot of details, a lot of history, a lot of background, and a lot of discussion, a lot of questions and answers.
Well, can I point one thing out, Robert? You had said that when you voted for the consent order, that DPW has not been forthcoming with the information on how they came up with the MVR or VMR process, and that I'm sure that given the chance, they will show us how they chose it. They haven't done that, and that the information I've requested, they've been very selective in what they provide. Now, they went through a great deal of effort to show how qualified they were. I don't doubt that they're qualified. I want the information to base a sound judgment on, and there is, I feel like they have been spoon-feeding information to us to make a decision. I still have to go back and listen to the audio on this thing, but many times I felt that they weren't giving us the whole story. There's another part to this too. Speaking with other people in the wastewater treatment field, technology is fast evolving. 10 MGD, when do you expect us to get to that? That's got to be way past, 2030, 2035 is when we expect to get to 4 MGD. So 10 MGD, that might be a whole new century. Okay? So why are you assuming we're still going to be going with VMI? It sounds like planning for way in the future, committing to a system, committing to a process. We're putting a lot of faith in, and a lot of things can change. Environmental regulations can change. So, you know, the way he's even validated this, I'm not buying. And for him to provide us with his explanation on the day of the presentation, where we can't question everything, and he didn't provide the numbers. So that's my problem. All I ask for is the information.
I would encourage you to make a list of what you want in writing, and I'm sure that they'll provide it to us.
I asked 3 times.
Put it. Don't ask. Put it in writing. Then I'd like to see it, and I'll follow through.
I will forward it.
But anyway, let's go back. I think it's if there's a fault, I think it's the commissioner's fault for not asking enough tough questions back in the day. I think that in my mind, we didn't ask to see the pros and the cons, the cost effectiveness of different comparisons of different treatment systems. So if there's any fault, I don't want to fault the Public Works Department. I want to fault the commissioners for not asking the right questions at that time. And we the commissioners, could have, should have asked more detailed questions about what's the benefit of this process, or this process, or this process. We could have asked to have the Public Works Department show us their evaluation. I don't have any doubt in my mind that they did it. They did it internally, they discussed it amongst themselves, they discussed it amongst the engineers, and they came to a conclusion. And I have no doubt that they used their best judgment, and they did their due diligence. There's no doubt in my mind. I know that Diana Broom was not convinced of that, and that's okay. But the fact is that at the time, we didn't ask, the commissioners did not ask to see the results of their evaluation and their determination of the direction that they ultimately decided to go in. And we, into some, that was the commissioners at that time. Now, you know, obviously some of the council members were not on the commissioner board at that time. They had nothing to do with it. But those of us that were there could have asked tougher questions and asked to see the results of their evaluation. And we didn't do that. But the fact is that I believe strongly that that evaluation was done. I think it was done internally, and they didn't go out of their way to tell us all the other options and other choices that were available. I think they just proposed what they thought was best.
Okay, so I can then, when I ask for the fourth time for these numbers, I can ask for the evaluation that was done comparing different processes.
Well, I think they showed us that this morning. I think they showed us some of those evaluation on the pros and the cons.
No, they had MBR, and then they had filter system. And the filter system was the price for everything, for every filter system, or just generally speaking. That's what I saw. Could you remind me, am I missing something?
Is that a different, is that a different type of
He said
system?
basically all
There
the
are many
filters.
types of systems. There are many types of systems. And again, I think that the Public Works Department are professionals in the business. They know what they're doing. They've relied on engineers and other professionals to give them sound advice, and they've come to a conclusion. And it is what it is. Now, we can override that conclusion if we choose. It'll be expensive to do that. And as I said before, we won't be laying the groundwork for future capacity improvements. We'll be behind the eight ball with future. And obviously, one of the things that we can all disagree on or agree on, and I haven't seen enough discussion about it, is what is going to be the growth on the growth corridor in Cecil County. How much will we need in capacity going forward? And maybe we should have more discussion about that. And I think no one's crystal ball is working perfectly, but there needs to be best guess, and certainly maybe we should work on that and come to an agreement on where that needs to go. Because I don't know where and how much growth we're going to have.
Yeah, I guess that's my biggest concern, with you know, that you know, it just seems like a whole lot, and we're basing that on, you know, a large growth, on something that's not even done yet. And my concern is, with the way the state government's been going, they may have new requirements. What's to stop them from saying, no, this is not the system we want you to have, we, you know, look for something else.
It's interesting you bring up that point, because that was one of the benefits of the proposed system that they want to use, because they feel that they can get more efficiency out of it. They can make the water cleaner using this filtration system than others. That they felt that this was one of the pros, that they can actually increase the water quality to a higher standard than is required today.
One of the negatives, and I think they discounted this, but other people I've spoken with said, no, the MBR system does require a lot more electricity. And when you do a pilot study, you would see the efficiency of the process, but also the cost of the process to determine which one, you know, make a reasonable decision. And that just wasn't done here. And it, you know, we're also committing to actually another location of where we're going to designate the growth. We also have Meadowview on the west side. East side. Got that backwards. And are we going to commit to, how much are we going to commit to Meadowview when we have to expand over there? We've already, you know, done the 40 million, and then we have another 18 million that we would have to commit to get to 4.0. So it, you know, you're not finished. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay, I thought the Meadowview was.
So you have talking tonight.
I thought the Meadowview was in pretty good shape.
It is. It's not ENR, and, you know, the, environmental regulations, might get stiffer, in the future. And depending on how much growth rate we're allocating Cherry Hill, we're taking that offline, or is it?
Cherry Hill is one.
Highlands, Highlands, yeah.
Because they're gonna have their own.
Cherry Hill is slated to go
To Meadowview, that's correct,
Yeah.
yes.
So depending on how much capacity is used up.
They say there's plenty of it up there, I don't really know the exact numbers, but they say there's more than ample capacity.
Well, let's find out what the numbers are, and then you have to keep your options open. You know, like I said, we only have so much in resources, and you pointed the same thing out, when people have come to us for money for their budget. How are we going to fund, with limited resources?
Well, we have to fund the things that are most important.
Exactly, and you have to prioritize.
Exactly, I concur, but we do not want to basically put ourselves in a box by going with some archaic technology that can't be expanded reasonably.
I agree.
I just want to clear up two things. Number one, when Diana started making her statement, she questioned why they gave us their credentials. And I think that each of the people in Public Works that talked today gave a series of everything that they're certified in and what they have certificates in. And I think that was to say, we're not dummies. We've got the certificates. We know what we're doing, number one. Number two, as far as doing a pilot, which I think that Diana was really hot on, they went to Ohio and they went to Miami and actually spent time at plants that use the membrane bioreactive systems. So that rather than do a pilot at Seneca Point, they went out and viewed a working biomembrane reactive plant so that they knew that it was efficient and it did work. They were very upfront with the fact that it would use more electricity, but they thought that there would be savings in other areas that would make up the difference, is what I heard today.
Those filter systems are very expensive, although the lifespan was a lot longer than
10 years.
I had heard.
10 to 11 years.
But the other thing is, the benefit of a pilot study, all these treatment systems are different, and they watch someone else's treatment system. A lot of times,
I think it's what they chose, is what I heard today.
you have a compilation of, like we have a carousel, I believe, and then we would add the MBR process to that.
You mean the area?
We have a carousel process with aeration.
Yeah.
I said I'm not an expert.
Well, neither am I. But
That would be dangerous.
that's separate from the actual membrane system. That is another step in the process.
Yes, but it all works together.
It flows from one thing to the next.
Okay, well, thank you very much, this has been helpful, I'm just trying to understand this thing.
Good luck.
Came to the wrong place now. The next speaker is Ron Hartman.
Good evening, Ron Hartman. I'm here more or less to follow up on my previous discussion on March 19th related to the Northeast Wastewater Treatment Plant ENR upgrade and a memo that I forwarded to all the county council members and Terry Moore of April 1st. As Mr. Robert mentioned, they had a long discussion this morning, and I was actually here and listened to Department of Public Works make their presentation. It's obvious that the Department of Public Works, and I assume their consulting engineer, GHD, are totally convinced that spending $58 million to achieve the 4.5 MGD is justifiable. I guess, frankly, I believe it's outrageous, for choice of a better word. The more I actually look at the construction estimates that GHD has put together, that's kind of what got me actually wound up, I should say. And so the only thing I can do is discuss these estimates in some areas that I'm really concerned about, the numbers. I guess maybe, fortunately, unfortunately, I've spent 35 years selling water and wastewater equipment through consultants to municipalities in the United States. Some of these people were my competitors. I don't know, I'm just kind of familiar with numbers let's look at some of these construction estimates a little bit. In GHD's letter, November 7, 2012, they did a detailed estimate and arrived at a cost of $9.2 million for a 2 MGD ENR upgrade using the Parkson denitrification filters. In here, they outlined the installed cost for the Parkson system was $2,960,000. Then on the 18th, March 18th, they did a construction estimate, GHD did. A detailed cost estimate, arrived at a cost estimate of $31 million for 2 MGD, same size plant, ENR upgrade, using membrane filtration equipment. And they had 2 lines listed relating to membrane filtration equipment costs. And you total these costs up, and the cost for the membrane filtration system, which is does the same job as the Parkson denitrification system, it takes you to ENR in a different manner, was $11,680,000 as compared to $2,960,000. So I'm looking at this, I'm saying, they're spending to install the membrane filtration system equipment, $11,680,000. Well, that was more than the total estimate of $9.2 million to upgrade an ENR, to upgrade 2 MGD ENR using the denitrification filters. I mean, for the $9.2 million, included reactor modification for $2.7 million, denitrification filters for like $3 million, methanol system, recycle pumps, ENR, site work, yard work, electrical. And I'm looking at these numbers and I'm going, you need an additional $8.7 million to put in the membrane filtration equipment for more than you need to put in the Parkson denite filters. And I'm saying, they're crazy numbers to me. Now, maybe I don't have enough and all the information, but that's my first honest reaction to some of these numbers. Now, I found out this morning, and I know that in GHD's estimate here, they talk about that we have renegotiated the cost for the GE membrane filtration equipment. And then I found out this morning, I guess it was done back in August 2011.
10.
My question is, since we pre-negotiated this, what is Cecil County paying GE for their actual equipment, not installed, but for their filtration equipment for a 2 MGD plant? What are we paying these guys? Do we know? Does anyone know here? Or is it?
The best of my knowledge, there has not been any price negotiation. The best of my knowledge is that we needed to determine the filtration system so that could be spec'd into the design and engineering.
Okay.
Okay? And I don't think we agreed to,
Well,
the county agreed to use that specific type of process.
good. Well, okay.
We did not agree to pay X number of dollars.
Oh, okay. Now,
But in order for the design and engineering to move forward, the engineer needed to know what system are you going to use.
okay, so you gave permission to use a system,
Right.
but not a system at a given price.
Best of my knowledge, that's correct.
Now, this memorandum from GHD says they pre-negotiated a cost for the GE membrane filtration equipment.
I think that there was a cost estimate
Now,
for budgeting purposes.
oh, I got the feeling when I'm reading this that we sole sourced GE membranes and that we sole sourced it and pre-negotiated a price with it. Now, it's just from reading it. Maybe it hasn't been done, Robert, but that's my vibration.
Got it.
And then when I look at the numbers, and I'm trying to talk to some people, I'm like, well, this, for 2 MGD, these membranes should cost no more than $2 million, or somewhere in that vicinity, and I'm seeing, and that's just equipment. I'm seeing over 11 million for install. I'm like, I'm getting concerns that frankly, I don't wanna see Cecil County get jacked here, okay? And I know you don't, nobody does. And as I say, maybe I know too much, maybe I'm just getting my frustrations up. But I'm here speaking to you. I mean, I'm kinda like, gee, you should be able to spend 31 million, you should get your 4.5 MGD upgrade using membrane filtrations. You shouldn't have to spend another 18 million to get to 4.5, you know? It shouldn't just get you to 2, it should get you to 4.5. Now these are my personal vibrations. I haven't, obviously, the Department of Public Works has done a lot of work. And they've thought this through and they made a lot of logical, I mean, I'm sitting here, I'm listening to it. It's not like they've been irresponsible as far as the procedural, the way they've gone. And to Hazen and Sawyer as a peer review, to overlook Stearns and Wheeler, now GHD. And I know these names from 35 years, and these are top-notch consultants. They aren't just like riprap off the street. And so I'm a little torn because I know we're working with good consultants because I work with these guys. And then I see these numbers and I'm like frustrated. Now, maybe I shouldn't be frustrated, maybe I shouldn't care. Maybe I should just say, okay, I'm a citizen, I don't care. So I guess my opinion is, hey, if we can't get a better deal, then let's look at the technologies that I outlined in my April 1st memo. And of course now I understood from this morning reading the timeline, the essence of the timeline, the situation everybody's in. There are all kinds of technologies. Frankly, there's other membrane manufacturers. GE isn't the only one. I would check with other membrane manufacturers to see if we're getting good competitive numbers. At that point, I mean, I don't really have much more to offer than looking at these numbers and ain't adding up and expressing concerns. And I'll probably go ahead and, as I did in the last time I discussed it, put together a memo and express it in the best confident manner in writing to you so you can have it on the record. Other than that,
Mr. Hartman, I have a question for you. If you think that these consulting firms, you say they're very reputable, you trust them, you know the names, why wouldn't they have gone out and, or at least told our Department of Public Works to get other bids if in fact you think the GE Xeon is so expensive? I'm asking, I don't know.
I don't know either. I can't, maybe they did. Maybe they went to other equipment manufacturers. But, man, all I'm doing is expressing.
I understand that.
Yeah. And they are reputable people. And they are competent people. And I can't really answer your question. All I'm doing is the facts I have in front of me.
Right.
And the knowledge I have. So
Well,
I'm not getting into
yeah,
areas I can't. You know?
Well, I was just asking because as a council person, I know, what I know about wastewater treatment, you could put in the tip of this pen. Seriously, so what am I doing? I am relying on whom I consider to be the experts to give me valid information. If in fact you're questioning the validity of their information, that's another thing.
Yes, looking at their information and questioning the severe differences in numbers.
Where did you get your numbers? Where did you get your numbers?
No, I got my numbers from, the numbers I'm throwing out here from GHD's report.
Yeah, but you were saying it could be so much cheaper. I'm just
A
wondering.
different system.
Not the membrane bioreactive system couldn't be cheaper, is what you're saying. I mean, what we're paying, what we may be paying.
Well, as I say, I'm trying to find out what we are, have we negotiated, has your consultant renegotiated a price for what they're paying GE for their actual equipment?
I don't know.
I don't know
I
either.
don't think that's
That's a
happening.
question.
I don't think it's happened.
I think the only thing they've done is design the facility, that's all they've done, I don't think it's put up for pricing
Well-
whatsoever.
Once again, I'm looking at Parsons D-Night system, and I know Parsons doesn't give away their equipment. From my experience in competition. And they're $2,960,000, and this membrane filtration equipment installed is $11,680,000, and I'm just like, it don't make any sense.
Well,
Is that a contract, can I ask you?
Huh?
Is that a contract that we have with the
This
company?
is GHD's, this is your consultant.
Is that a proposal or a contract?
No, this is your consultant's, estimate on construction costs.
Yes.
And all I'm doing is looking at it in detail and saying, something's not adding up. Now, maybe it does add up, maybe the consultants can explain exactly why they're paying that much for the filtration system as compared to, Parsons system, but to me, it just is bothersome.
I think, Mr. Hart, we can all agree that different filtration and treatment systems have different prices. I think we can also agree that there's pros and cons, advantages and disadvantages of each and every option. I think where we disagree is that you don't have the confidence in our Public Works Department to for them to do their due diligence and come to a conclusion. And the fact is that you and Dinah Brumall and myself and no one else was in the room when they were going through this process of making a determination of which way to go. And I think today they tried to tell us why, for what reasons, they went in the direction that they went in. And there are other issues other than price and cost. And that wasn't the overriding determination on why they went with the membrane bioreactor. They decided that there was other criteria. There was other criteria that was important to them, including the fact that they wanted to be able to remain on that site all the way through until final build out of the county. And they didn't want to have to put another council or county executive in a position where they would reach a certain capacity and say, okay, that's the limit. We can go there at Seneca Point. If we're gonna go farther, we have to find another site to build a new plant. And I think that was a big factor. I think there was other factors in their evaluation process. And I realized that sitting on the outside, we have to have some trust. And obviously, at this point in time, they haven't done a good enough job to convince you and Dinah Brumall that they did their evaluation, their due diligence sufficiently.
Well, you agreed with that as well on the day of the consent order.
No, I agree that at the time, they had not discussed the pros and the cons. They had not brought to our attention all the pros, the cons, the advantages and the disadvantages. At that time, I didn't say that I didn't trust them, I didn't say, but there had not been publicly a large discussion about why they picked that particular treatment system. Okay, that's what I said. I said that, and I think I got a lot more explanation today, and previously there were some other explanations that were provided.
Well,
they
when a consultant puts together his estimate, he gets numbers from equipment suppliers. That's where you start. And then you put in money for concrete, you put in money for installation, you put in, and he's defined where he puts money in for. So, I guess I'm asking, what numbers did they get from GE for their Xeon membrane builders.
We'll put that request for information.
And being that you've pre-negotiated a cost with them, I'll say it again, pre-negotiated a cost with somebody, you're buying their equipment. It's like a sole source.
Are you familiar with this technology we're discussing?
I'm familiar with it.
Is it commonly used?
What?
Is it commonly used?
Membrane, biomembrane filters started being introduced 10, 20 years ago. There are more people than one person that provides. The Xeon system's one. There are other equipment suppliers out there that supply it. I could get a whole list of equipment suppliers that supply it. I could put them in my memo to you.
And then I guess the point I'm trying to make, I mean, is the technology adequate? I mean, because if the technology is good, then we can find different suppliers.
Technology is adequate. I mean, it.
So your complaint would be with the provider of the equipment?
I'm just frustrated over the numbers.
Well, the first number you threw out was $58 million, is that correct?
That's what they said
Yeah.
to get to 4.5
Yeah.
MGD plan, which are biomembrane.
But that's not what we're planning for.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it would be my opinion that the technology is correct, then we have all the parts together, then we'll put it out to bid to see who can do it at the most reasonable price. Is that not?
No, that's not true, because this specific technology is proprietary.
Oh, theirs.
Yes, and
I
that's.
thought you said that many people use this technology.
No,
Yeah, I think
no.
that's his point,
Sim-
that we're
sim- there are other
selectively
people that
going.
make membrane.
But the reason the county public works department came to the county commissioners, whether it's August of 11 or August of 10, I can't say.
That says 12, the back report. That report came out 12.
And the county commissioners that time gave the green light
Yep, they did.
to the public works department to move forward with that technology.
That's what I found.
With that technology or with
Oh,
that?
yeah.
Both,
I understand.
because it's a
I
proprietary.
understand that. I found that out this morning. No, you did.
It's a proprietary technology, and we committed ourselves to buying that technology. That was what's gonna be designed
Did you
in.
commit yourself to buying membrane filtration or Xeon membrane filtration? I think you committed to Xeon membrane filtration, but I don't know.
Probably,
I don't,
yes.
I found out a lot of things this morning. That's why I was here.
You gotta max out
I'm
that
trying to
cost.
pay attention.
So with this technology, the only thing that you can do is use this company. You cannot basically
Right.
subcontract or bid this out anyway.
That's what I'm saying. I don't.
Could be a part of the contract is that you're committed to.
Well, I don't know how much you committed.
Yeah, me neither. That's the
Well, we're
next
committed to
question that
$3
we
million.
need to ask.
I can't answer that question. But there is more than one manufacturer of membrane that.
Is there anyone else that has any issues that they want to bring before the council?
I mean, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, I think Al's right, we've got 1 minute left.
Thank you
Oh,
for your
I
time.
have a quick question. Well, is there,
Thank you for your discussion.
is there a chance that someone will sue then if you've already committed to buy this equipment? Are you gonna face a lawsuit now if you changed
Oh,
as
wow,
well?
did we sign a contract?
Well, you voted,
And you were the one.
you voted in 2011 when you
Well,
voted.
I find it interesting that they say that we voted on it, I have to go back and listen, hopefully there's an audio. But here, we're looking at a methanol addition, to see if that will get us to 2 MGD, and that was in 2012. I really have to go back and listen, because it was my understanding that I was being very cautious. I always felt like we never were given enough information, and that we would take the steps we needed to at the time. So, that's what I remember. All right, well, thank you.
Good evening. Thank you again.
That was a pretty painless,
All done.